but I want to start with this astonishing article, this bombshell Donna Brazile article that came out today. And so Donna Brazile, for anyone who hasn't read it, should read it right afterwards. It's up on Politico, it's up on Huffington Post, and then I think they took it down. And so she wrote this article basically throwing the Hillary campaign and Debbie Wasserman Schultz under the bus, and admitting that, the primary was rigged, as the DNC did in 2016 after the Democratic National Convention, just like they did then too. The reason for which, they got rid of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, which the Hillary Clinton campaign picked right up, rewarded her by bringing her into the campaign. And so Donna Brazile in this article pretends to have not known anything about this arrangement that existed between the DNC and what was called the Hillary Victory Fund. And so the Hillary Victory Fund, for anyone who doesn't know, was ostensibly an organization that was there to help Hillary Clinton fundraise for the Democratic state parties, which have been ailing for a long time, not getting any money, like the DNC itself. And in reality, what it was doing is that it was circumventing campaign finance limitations on donating to the Hillary campaign, the individual maximum contribution being $2,700 during the primaries. And it was allowing Hillary's big donors to contribute $10,000 to the state parties, but that money didn't remain with the state parties. It was funneled to the DNC, and then the DNC funneled the money back to the Hillary campaign, in the end circumventing campaign finance laws. And so this is, it's so characteristic of the Clintons, really, of course. The Clinton Foundation being another money laundering operation, political favors from the State Department in exchange for big speaking fees to Bill Clinton. And so what's incredible here is, Donna Brazile writes this article today, publishes it, discussing this and discussing how the DNC was basically turned over to the Hillary campaign during the primaries. And so the DNC was operating almost as a subsidiary of the Hillary campaign. The press releases had to be approved by the DNC. The spending had to be approved. You can just imagine where this settles all of that speculation about where that horrific debate schedule came from. The Hillary campaign designed it, of course. That put all of the debates, that limited it from, it was like something like 20 debates in 2008, all the way down to 4 debates that were always scheduled on the worst night of the week, when there was a big football game going on, or when it was like the biggest shopping day of the year. That was one of them. And so, it's like laughably bad debate time. And of course, Hillary went on to renege on her promise to do that final debate in California after Bernie Sanders granted her a debate in New Hampshire. And so it wasn't enough for Donna Brazile to protect. Of course, Donna Brazile doesn't discuss her role in rigging the primaries, which is also admitted and covered, and the reason why she received the DNC position to begin with. She became chair, succeeding Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And so she doesn't admit that, passing debate questions to the Hillary campaign, and that she was very much a part of that. And it's also completely non-credible that she was not aware of this financial arrangement, that the DNC was essentially operating as a wing of the Hillary campaign throughout the primaries. And I want to take this opportunity to remind everyone that not once has anyone received an apology from either from the Clinton campaign or from the DNC about this from the party. The party has not taken responsibility for this whatsoever. They can't. In fact, every indication is that while at the same time that Donna Brazile is admitting to this, they're preparing to rig the primaries again in 2020. they're doing everything possible to set that up. And so that's why they have their attorneys arguing in court rather than taking responsibility for it. Their attorneys are arguing in court that they have the right to do it because they're a private corporation and they don't really owe their voters anything. There's no expectation of impartiality. And they could pick their candidates in back rooms if they want. They could have a primary, have everyone vote, and then pick someone else. It's all a facade, you know. And in fact, that is what they do. That's the superdelegates facilitate that, which, by the way, makes the Democratic Party less democratic than the Republicans, because the Republicans have very few unpledged delegates, and the Democratic Party has a tremendous role. You can get to 30% of the nomination on superdelegates alone, and Hillary, in fact, almost did. Before a single vote was cast, Hillary was 20% of the way to the nomination. You have absurdities like that. So it wasn't enough, of course, for Donna Brazile to rig the primary, but Donna Brazile needed to profit from the fraud that she helped commit with the DNC by passing those debate questions. And so conveniently, this article that she published comes out days before her new book is published, which delves into the same subject matter. And, you know, and this is really incredible to me. It comes out days before the election, days before the 2017 election. I mean, just think about that. She's willing to throw Democrats under the bus with this bombshell about the DNC, depressed turnout, you know, for as high as it was going to be anyways, all so that she can profit off of this personally with her book, and then be rewarded for all of this, for this vast array of fraud, by having a position on the Rules Committee that's going to determine the rules in 2020 for the primaries. A committee by which, by the way, not a single Bernie Sanders supporter has been appointed to. In fact, the Bernie Sanders supporters were purged from the party a couple of weeks ago, as you guys remember, from being DNC members. And so I filmed a live stream after that where I said that, you know, there's just no reasonable expectation to think that this party is going to reform anymore, not for as much as there ever was. I mean, it's a complete absurdity. They're going in the other direction. They're consolidating power. They won't even give Bernie Sanders supporter a token member on the Rules Committee. Not one. Someone who would be completely powerless among the many other Clinton and DNC loyalists who own the DNC, and they won't even allow that. And the Unity Commission, you know, which they make a big deal out of, is something that they aren't taking any recommendations from, and which ultimately passes its recommendations to the Rules Committee, which decides whether any of them should go to the DNC at large. And there's no Sanders supporters on the Rules Committee. And of course, the DNC is, thanks to Tom Perez and the party, stacked with more lobbyists, more corporate lobbyists than ever, from you name it, you know, Citgo, pharmaceuticals, pharmaceutical companies, Fox News, Goldman Sachs, Vice President of Government Affairs for Goldman Sachs sits on the DNC. So, I mean, I just find it astonishing, and there really is no expectation anymore. I mean, who in their right mind can say that the DNC is just, you know, just 1 month away from turning around? Just wait for the winter meeting. Oh, there's sure to be a turnaround at the winter meeting. You know, I mean, who in their right mind can say that a month from now and a year from now they won't be doing exactly the same thing? That leads me to an article that Les Leopold wrote. It's a great article that talks about a point that we've discussed often, and that's that the donor class has now been emboldened by Trump's victory and is cutting out the middlemen. They're cutting out the middlemen politicians, and they're seizing elected office for themselves. Because why pay for someone else to become president or governor or senator when you can just buy the office for yourself? So in Illinois, the governor is a billionaire, Republican governor, billionaire, and he's facing off, get this, against another billionaire who's a Democrat, and another guy who has a paltry 100 million. You know, I guess like that's working class in their world. In West Virginia, the governor is a billionaire. He was elected last year by the Democrats. He's a coal baron, Jim Justice. And he promptly switched to the Republican Party after being elected by the Democrats because they are Republicans. Because there's hardly any difference, as Chomsky points out. It's a one-party state, the business party, with two right wings, the Democrats and Republicans. In New Jersey, the Democratic candidate for governor, Democrat, comes from Goldman Sachs. In California, the state chair is a pharmaceutical lobbyist. In Florida, the state chair is a billionaire, real estate developer. In Virginia, the Democratic candidate for governor, my state, is a former Republican who recently promised that sanctuary cities would never come to Virginia and undocumented immigrants would never be safe in my home state. This is the dying gasp of American democracy and the birth of an unrepentant kleptocracy. And the Democratic Party is leading the way. There's talk of other billionaires. You know, which billionaire is going to run for office against Trump? You know, is it going to be Mark Cuban? Is it going to be Mark Zuckerberg? Is it going to be Tom Steyer? Or is he going to settle for governor of California? It's a deplorable state of affairs, folks, and I cannot imagine how anyone believes that this party is on the verge of turning around. It's going in exactly the other direction. It is happily embracing billionaires and plutocrats and putting them into power. Oh, how wonderful. They self-finance because nobody wants to give us money, certainly not the grassroots, because the Democratic Party is tremendously in debt, and they've raised much less than the Republican Party. Republican Party outraises them, the RNC. And, of course, the people who they've put in charge of managing the 2018 elections are Rahm Emanuel, the Blue Dog Democrats, strongly in the control of financial interests. And so those are the kinds of candidates you have to look forward to in 2018. Not that it matters that much, because Independent Voter conducts a survey every year where they project where every election year, and they project what the results are going to be for that election year. And they have a 97% accuracy rating in predicting where all of the seats in Congress are going to go, which party. And they're predicting that not only will the Democrats not take the House or the Senate, and the Senate was a pipe dream anyways from the beginning, but what's amazing is that their prediction is made exclusively by taking into account the district's voting history. It takes nothing else into account, who the incumbent is and the voting history, the party voting history. So it doesn't take into account the candidates' platforms. It doesn't take into account fundraising. It doesn't take into account message. It doesn't take into account scandals. It doesn't take into account waves for one party or another. Election cycles that favor one party or another. You can predict with a 97% accuracy which of the two parties is going to win in each of the House districts, just with the district's history. That's how abysmally controlled the primary processes are. That's how incredibly controlled the general election process are, and how gerrymandered they are, and how so many of these districts have really turned into one-party contests. They're so safe. So, as Nina Turner said, this past weekend at the Women's Convention, it just might be time for a third party to come around and shake this up. And that's exactly what we need. In the two governors' races that are happening in off-year in 2017, both in New Jersey and in Virginia, progressives have already lost. John Wisniewski, who was running in New Jersey, he lost to Mr. Goldman Sachs in the Democratic primary. Tom Ferrellio, who was running, also endorsed by Our Revolution, like John Wisniewski, lost to Ralph Northam, a neoliberal, former Republican, inside the Democratic primary. The progressives have already lost. Whoever wins, whether it's the Democrat or the Republican in those states. And how is that? You know, how can that be, given that progressives are the majority of the country? When you look at the polls consistently, the issue polls, 2/3 of people want single payer. 2/3 of people want free public college. You know, how can it be the large majority of Americans want to tackle climate change? An overwhelming majority of Americans want money out of politics, and they want to reduce inequality. It's because the Democratic Party brand is so tarnished that even when a progressive runs inside the Democratic Party, people don't turn out. They see the D, because most people voted straight down party lines. So the progressives don't have a chance. They don't even have an opportunity to get their message out there, because everyone assumes correctly what that party is about that they're running in. And those things get projected onto them. And also because the party process is so controlled, the primary process, with closed primaries and, you know, ridiculous things like the date to register to vote in New York's primary in 2018 has already passed. We're not even in 2018, and it's already passed. If you haven't registered as a Democrat, you can't vote in their primary. And this is exactly why, like Nina Turner said, it's time for a third party. Like Roseanne DeMoro tweeted today, it's time for Bernie to get out of that party. She tweeted our petition today, our draft Bernie petition. And she said it's time to cut the crap. Heroes are cornered. They aren't made. Which is exactly what she said when she endorsed us on stage with Bernie at the People's Summit in front of all 4,200 participants, tens of thousands of people watching live. So there is some good news. People are coming around. Former staffers inside the Bernie campaign who are friends of mine, who obviously we knew each other, are contacting me and telling me, all right, I've had it. That's enough. Where do I sign up? And thank goodness, because I don't know what people are thinking if they're still in there.